Rachel Reeves, as we know, is a liar. You know, she is our current Chancellor of the Exchequer, but she's never had the, well, shall we say, grace to come forward and explain the reasons why those discrepancies on her CV. And yet, 14 years down the line, the current Labour government, headed by Sir Keir Starmer, waited 14 years to pick the cream of the crop to help govern this once great country. The best person apparently he could find was Rachel Reeves, but never in all of that time did he look through her CV and think, what's she accomplished? What does she know about running such a big operation? Seemingly, Rachel is clearly very, very, very thick, because on the day that she allowed a renters bill for landlords to go through, it turns out that in fact she was breaking the law, but apparently it was an honest mistake. Let me explain. Morning, nice to see you. Thank you so much, chums, for taking the time out to join me today, and welcome one and all. If you are a landlord or a renter, all of these new things, of course, that the latest government, headed by Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and the rest, do make it incredibly difficult, you know, and I've got friends who are renting who are harassed on a daily basis with the endless emails from these property landlords who think they can bully and push you around. And the bottom line is you have very few things in your arsenal. So a new idea was very much welcome. Turns out though that about 57 grand's worth wasn't welcome enough for the liar that is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. Now, if you remember earlier this year, she burst into tears live on television at Prime Minister's Question Time because apparently it was a personal matter. No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was a full-blown argument of which her job was on the line. And this is simply because the Prime Minister and Rachel Reeves were at loggerheads, right? And one or the other was going to get it. And you'll notice during that whole period, he never once turned round and offered comfort or indeed said, oh, you know, you better leave or whatever. He claims he didn't know what was going on right next to him. How dense do you have to be like that? Well, clearly as dense as Rachel Reeves. Because even though she's now been caught out, and, you know, the bottom line is, let's not forget a few months ago, Angela Rayner was forced to resign for a very similar thing where she'd made another honest mistake. And this is now brewing behind the scenes of 10 Downing Street, because Ange feels that why should she have had to resign and Rachel is not resigning. Now, this was all bubbling over. All the mainstream media are pointing this out, including, of course, the opposition headed for the Conservatives by the Right Honourable Kemi Badenoch. And Kemi is right. Now, Rishi Sunak pointed out just before the general election last year that, of course, Keir Starmer would tax everything, and he couldn't have been blunter about what he was saying. And yet all the celebrities, as I told you, the likes of Jason Manford, who are going to be heading this year's Royal Variety performance at this year's Royal Albert Hall, alongside Elton John and his partner David Furnish, Beverly Turner, John Richardson, all of these people basically said this is the great change that we need. All of them, like Carol Vorderman, have disappeared. Oh, I made a mistake. Keir's not the person I was. Dawn French. I've got to be honest and say, I actually think I trust Keir. How thick are these people? They're not as dense, though, as Rachel Reeves. She knows that she can't be fired because she has enough to bring down the materials that she knows would, in fact, finish the Labour Party right now. So when you think about, well, what's happening with Rachel? Why does nobody tell her off? Well, the true factor is nobody tells her off because they daren't. It's as simple as that. Keir Starmer is frightened of his own Chancellor of the Exchequer. And you will notice, of course, that the minute there's something for her, he's very much backing that, right? Suddenly he's out in support of her. Wasn't so supportive of Angela Rayner, and there's two reasons for that. Angela was more popular than Rachel Reeves. She sort of connected with the lower element of life, if you like, and so Keir couldn't do that. He didn't really care whether Angela stayed or went or whatever. But Rachel, you see, is more, shall we say, difficult to deal with. And he can deny it all if he wants. But really, anybody else in this position who'd evaded £57,000 of taxable income, well, the bottom line is they would have had to resign. Now, what's interesting is if you're a renter or a landlord, you try doing the same thing and give that answer to them. I didn't know. even though, as I say, the day before she's online welcoming this brand new Bill of Rights. As I said at the start of this, how dense is Rachel Reeves? Possibly not as dense as you think, but what she does have is power, and power over the man that is running the country. Sean, Kensington, London.